Danny poked George, only to find his hands covered in poop. Surprisingly, George looked very happy. That day, Grandpa Pig took everyone bowling. When Danny reached the lane, he excitedly ran over and knocked down a whole row of pins in one go. But when it was time to actually throw the ball, he didn't hit a single pin. Everyone couldn't help but laugh at him. Next, it was Grandpa Dog's turn. He gently threw the ball, and all the pins fell perfectly. He proudly showed off his skill. But when it was Grandpa Pig's turn to bowl, the ball bounced back and hit him instead. George couldn't stop laughing, and Grandpa Pig started crying from frustration. Peppa also wanted to try, but she threw the ball too high and broke a window. Just then, Police Panda appeared, taking Peppa away. Meanwhile, Danny went to pick up the balls, only to find they were all stuck together. That's when she realized George had been playing pranks. Grandpa Dog quickly tossed George out. Grandpa Pig tried again, but this time his ball completely veered off course, and he even slipped on the lane. Everyone burst into laughter. George grabbed a ball and threw it, causing Grandpa Pig and George to both slip and fall. When it was Danny's turn, her ball flew into the bathroom and knocked Susie out. Grandpa Dog didn't give up and threw his ball, which hit the cashier's desk, turning Mrs. Sheep into a lamb chop in an instant. In the final round, Grandpa Pig's ball veered off course again. He decided to drive the car and knock down the pins himself, successfully completing the ultimate strike. Afterward, Grandpa Pig proudly showed off, enjoying his beloved lamb chop. Peppa wanted to go outside and play in the snow, but Mommy Pig said no. Seeing this, George immediately threw a tantrum and even pooped a little green mess, which scared Mommy Pig enough to let them go out. But the moment they stepped outside, they had no idea what was about to happen. A massive snowball came rolling straight toward them. Peppa tried to stop it, but it was moving way too fast, and both of them were knocked flat onto the ground. At that moment, George couldn't hold it and pooped again. This completely set Peppa off, and she screamed at him in pure rage. After a while, George was having a great time, but Peppa started throwing snowballs at him. George didn't want to play anymore, but Peppa kept throwing them anyway. He tried to run away, only to get knocked down by yet another snowball. George got so angry that he pooped again. This time, he came up with a clever idea. He shaped the poop into a snowball and slammed it right into Peppa's face. Peppa completely lost it. She packed an ice ball with her bare hands and smashed it straight into George's face, flattening it on impact. George cried out in pain, but Peppa told him to shut up. Then she invited George to build a snowman together. Surprisingly, George actually agreed. Once the snowman was finished, it was absurdly huge. Peppa began praising it, but then noticed it didn't have a nose. She went to get a carrot, only for George to mischievously stick a lump of poop onto the snowman. Peppa angrily replaced it with the carrot, but George moved the poop somewhere else again. Frustrated, Peppa kicked it away. Peppa thought the snowman looked perfect now, but it still needed some clothes. George ran back inside and brought out Daddy Pig's underwear and bra. Peppa called Mommy Pig over to take a look, and everyone burst into laughter. Just then, Daddy Pig noticed what was going on and ran over to grab his clothes back, but he slipped and fell straight onto the snowman, ending up wearing the entire outfit himself. George tried to squeeze into the house, but got stuck. Just then, Danny came charging toward him, holding a tree. George, surprised, shouted, "Nice!" That day, the greedy Danny rushed toward George's house, scaring him half to death. When the creepy Danny grabbed George and began his harassment, George panicked and fled for his life. He ran fast like a frightened child toward a wooden cabin. He knocked on the door, then turned around. He saw a wolf emerging from the bushes, ready to grab him. He tried to crawl in, but he was too fat and got stuck. At that moment, Danny came rushing in, holding a tree. George happily shouted, "Nice!" George squirmed on the ground, struggling, until his sister, Peppa, rushed over. George told her the wolf was outside. Danny peeked through the window, searching for the little pigs, but found nothing. George and Peppa giggled happily, like a couple of silly kids. Suddenly, the wolf reappeared, focusing its gaze on them. Peppa swung a chair and smashed it hard into the wolf. Danny cried like a little softie. Danny cried like a coward. George and Peppa laughed at him. Later, Danny brought a fire starter, set the little pig's house on fire. The house exploded, leaving the pigs exposed outside. Danny the wolf laughed at them, but was hit by a toilet. The little pigs quickly ran back to Daddy Pig's house. George came up with a plan and jumped into Daddy Pig's house, but he landed right on the barbecue grill. Daddy Pig didn't hesitate for a second and ate them. Grinning wickedly, Danny started dancing, knocking on the door in an exaggerated manner, but no one answered. He knocked harder and harder, getting angrier, until Daddy Pig threw an anvil at him. Danny tried to sneak down the chimney, but George heard him and warned Daddy Pig. Daddy Pig grabbed a tree and began to get revenge for George. Greedy Danny felt really good about himself. When he came down, George pushed the barbecue grill toward him. Danny fell right onto it. The hungry pig family devoured him. Whenever the power goes out, Peppa and George turn back into their true forms. One evening, Peppa and George were dancing in the living room, moving to their favorite music. George was shaking his little bottom with all his might, dancing with great enthusiasm. Meanwhile, Daddy Pig was vacuuming in the hallway, but he was doing it in a very strange way, grinning mischievously. Mummy Pig was editing a video in her office, getting ready to post it on TikTok, just like me. Suddenly, Daddy Pig barged into the room and began vacuuming in the same odd way. Mummy Pig couldn't stand it anymore, so she grabbed a fly swatter and gave Daddy Pig a good smack. Daddy Pig cried but kept on vacuuming. When, all of a sudden, the power went out. Daddy Pig happily kicked the vacuum aside, and Peppa and George, frightened by the darkness, turned into real little animals, scurrying around everywhere. They huddled close together, and Peppa shouted, "The power's out." Daddy Pig and Mummy Pig responded together. "Everyone knows. Now be quiet." George had no idea what was going on. At that moment, Mummy Pig started fiddling with the switch, and the light shone right on Daddy Pig's head, turning him into a very strange-looking creature.
Elektrische Tät.